All right. Good morning. Great to see you again. We've had a couple weeks off, and yeah, I missed this, so I'm glad we're back in front of the cameras and doing this thing. And a little side note here: our YouTube channel, we just passed 7,000 subscribers, which, in comparison to some people, it's not a lot, but um, I truly believe those are good customers of ours and viewers that really want this honest information, and we're glad they're tuning in. So, yeah, that's a pretty big milestone for us.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Good to hear.
Yeah,
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 gotta get the word out. I'd love to see that 7,000 turn into 70,000, but hey, just a matter of time. We just keep spreading the good news, and sooner or later, people will go, "Wow, tell all your friends." So
that's
that's
good.
good though. 7,000 is a good start, really good start, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's great to be here with the godfather of hydroponics. Call you the
Hmm. Oh yeah.
hydro father for reals. And we actually, me and my brother were talking about this. We actually got the domain names Hydroponic Hall of Fame
Hmm.
.com. Yeah, so as a side project, just if we want to have some fun, maybe some of our viewers can send in their suggestions who all we want to be, nominated into the Hydroponic Hall of Fame sometime. We could have fun with it.
Oh yeah. Hey, maybe we can get some of them on the podcast as a guest too.
Oh, great
Especially
thinking.
for sure.
Great thinking. Great thinking. Well, we won't waste any more time and just start it off again. Uh, Seems like silica has been chatter the last couple of weeks, and as well as amino acids have been a very popular topic as far as different sources, what the different sources do, what do we prefer, what do we think's better, what do we think, and kind of the answers, all the above. Depends on the setup, depends on the system, depends on the plants, depends on the soil. There's so many things involved. So just to kick it right off, let's go down that silica road. I'm sure you could
Okay.
give us a really good explanation of what it is, why we use it, and what it does.
Well, I'll start. And silicon is not an essential element. It's a beneficial element. So, do plants need silica to grow? Generally speaking, no, they don't. It's not an essential requirement for life. Now, some plants, though, like rice, it is an essential element. And some, especially the grasses and the greens, they accumulate silica to quite high numbers, almost as high as nitrogen. You know, so it's not just a minor trace element. It's taken up by quite a bit. But a lot of the dicot plants actually kind of reject silica unless they're in need. They're under attack or something. There are a few exceptions. I've seen on some of the labeling where this is not, where the silica product says this is not beneficial to dicots. You see that's on the label,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? Something like
Yeah.
that, a requirement in California. But that's not necessarily true, though. I mean, there are some plants specifically like uh, cannabis, for one, is an accumulator of silica. Sunflowers are accumulators. Nettles, other plants. There's quite a few that really take up a lot of silica. Other dicots are silica neutral. They take it up or don't take it up depending on the situations. Just like you were saying before, the soil conditions, the um, the pathogen pressure, and some though actually reject silica. So there's a wide range of responses on silicon. But I've seen even commercially in cucumbers, and that is a hydroponic cucumbers, which is of course a dicot. It's used to commonly to help prevent different diseases. Silica is taken up and it helps strengthen the cell walls of the plants. We talk a lot about amino acids and the uptake of calcium. Calcium forms the calcium pectate, the glue that glues the cell walls together. So I look at it this way. The calcium is the cement. The silica is embedded in the cement is the rebar that helps to reinforce and strengthen the cell walls of the plant. And it's beneficial to help protect against fungal attack. Silica is mobilized to the point of infection if they're under attack. Uh, Crystallizes the cell around the infection point, helps keep it from spreading. And also, silica just strengthens the cell walls themselves, so the leaves stand up better. The plant harvests more light energy. So that's beneficial in my mind for all plants, but some it's more beneficial than others.
Boy, we need to get you to write us, a technical write-up what you just said and send it to California regulators, their agricultural labeling department, because they're famous just for writing their own rules and you have to apply to it. And sometimes it's a struggle as, you know, nutrient, formulators and things like that. So, boy, I appreciate that explanation, and boy, that is good news. It brought up another point too. I was going to make um, different forms of silica. I mean, I believe
Hmm.
there's some different forms we need to look at. They're, I guess, at opposite ends of the spectrum as far as what they're derived from and how they work. And I know you're real familiar with our Kelp4Less silica powder. I know you've had quite a bit of
Mm-hmm.
experience with that. Um, what are some of the benefits and drawbacks to like the Kelp4Less organic silica compared to like the normal liquid like potassium silicate that people use?
Yeah. Well, there's some pros and cons of everything. In hydroponics, like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, start out that way. I visited a hydroponic cucumber production facility in Canada, in Leamington, Ontario. It had 70 acres under glass, 70
Wow.
acres of cucumbers that they were
Wow.
producing, all in hydroponics. The very first thing that they added to the water was potassium silicate. Potassium silicate is soluble. It breaks into potassium and silicic acid, but it's very alkaline. I at home, if I ever make a mistake and I overshoot my pH, make it too acidic, I want to raise my pH, I'll add a little potassium silicate because it raises it up, and I'm adding some silica, which is beneficial for the crops. Anyway, so that's the very first thing they add is potassium silicate, but it is alkaline. So if you already have alkaline water and you're adding more alkalinity to it, raising the pH even further, that makes it difficult to lower the pH to a point where all of the other transition metals are available to the plant: iron, copper, manganese, zinc, and others. So there's pros and cons. It's water soluble, but it raises pH. The other one is that we see a lot in hydroponics that I've worked with some growers is silicic acid, monosilicic acid. That's the form the plants actually take up. It's good. It's a good form. It's more expensive, but also I found that it's very reactive too. You have to add it to the water first, dilute it down before you add any of your other nutrients. If you try to dose it and then dose it with your concentrates, it turns into glue, and it just gums up the works. Literally, it causes a disaster. And I tried it once, years and years ago, just for the fun of it, not to feed my plants. I said, well, let me just take my my nutrient formula, my 200 to 1 concentrate, and just add some silicic or some potassium silicate to it, see what happens. It turned into glue. I couldn't even wash out the cylinder. I mean, it was just gummed up completely. I literally had to throw the graduated cylinder in the garbage. I couldn't wash it. So that's the downside. There's some reactivity there, um, and some pH issues. Nice thing about yours is that it's biogenic silica, and it's done. It's actually derived from the diatoms. and it's in a very, very fine powder. Now that means it's not as soluble, but it's flowable. The particles are so small that they don't clog things up, right? I mean, it
That's
won't clog up the
absolutely
emitter,
correct.
and it won't
Absolutely
react. It's not reactive. So, but some of it does dissolve slowly, becomes available to the plant instead of all at once. But to me, the best part of it, of the particles, is that some of those very, very, very tiny particles, they get caught in the roots, in the root zone as it's flowing through the root zone. And those are like the perfect house for microorganisms. It makes a little filter as the water flows through the pores, and those tiny, tiny particles. Some of those cations get trapped in there, and then or other nutrients are released. It's not just the silicon; it's the other trace elements that flow through, and microorganisms. It's a great carrier for the microorganisms too. And some of the microorganisms will make those nutrients more available to the plant, including silica. So it has the biological form, although it's not as soluble and as a soluble silicon source, it has multiple side benefits, in my opinion.
Yeah, good point. There's a lot of good factors to it. One, it's a very neutral pH product. It really doesn't affect, your reservoir or solutions that way. Uh,
Right?
n- Number two, it's organic and it's slow release. Some of the points you brought up, so it can be used in a variety of applications in a variety of, different crops. It is, uh, yeah, again, it's flowable, and just all those other benefits you get from it. Uh, it it seems to not interact with nutrient formulations. Seems
Right.
you can always add this version, and it's slow release and long term fix, like you described, how it gets into the roots and it holds on there. So it's a very effective part of the program, in my opinion. Um, it takes a lot of other guesswork out of formulating silica into your nutrient demands and nutrient solutions. And so we've had great success with it. We've mixed it in soil. We've used it in hydro. We've even put some on a crop through an airplane.
Oh
It's such
yeah.
a fine particle that we were able to with a crop duster with some other nutrient blends we did foliar it out of a crop duster on a crop. And so we were crossing our fingers to make sure that it would get through those emitters and the airplane wouldn't have any problems with it. But no, a piece of cake. It was a beautiful application. Or a lot of pasture ground and some forage crops really benefit from that silica as far as helping with some of the elemental demands that are placed on the crop and things like that. So yeah, it's a very versatile product. We're real happy with it, and our customers are really happy with it. Yeah, our organic silica powder, can't go wrong using it.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Now the downside, there is the downside too, though, is it's flowable and not 100% soluble. In
Yeah.
hydroponics, you typically want more solubility is better because it's still great, but you have to agitate. So
hmm
you're gonna have to make sure you agitate the tank before you do it because it's heavier. They're particles, and if you don't agitate, they're slowly going to start to settle out of solution, and they'll be at
hmm
the bottom of the tank. So you got to kind of stir it up before you apply it to get the best results. So that's the downside. If you're able to agitate, though, I don't see a downside there.
Yeah, we have a customer that adds it to his reservoir, and he just puts a small, excuse me, like a fish tank bubbler at
Hmm.
the bottom of his tank, and that seems to keep it in solution and stirred up. Really easy to do, inexpensive, and it's been working out pretty good for him.
Okay, so that sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah, just an idea there. And so that takes us to the next point. So we've seen some great response using the silica and the amino acid soluble powder together.
Hmm.
And it's like the two have a really good synergistic effect, and one helps the other. Have you had any experience with that?
Well, When I started out with, one of the main benefits is working along with calcium in the cell walls to strengthen the cell walls. Also, it has a physical barrier to help prevent powdery mildew. I look at calcium as king. That's the most important part, to get the calcium uptake. And that we know how to do that. The best way to do that is make sure your relative humidity is good. So you have good transpiration. It's not too humid. Make sure you have a little air movement so that it keeps the transpiration going, takes up the calcium, and the amino acids, especially the two big ones, glutamic acid and glycine, as we've said many times, literally stimulate root cells to open calcium ion channels. So the plant takes up calcium maybe 1,000 times more efficiently than simple
Wow.
osmosis. So they take up calcium. That's the main thing. That's going to strengthen the vascular system. It's the glue that glues the cell walls together. But if you're taking up more calcium and you can take up silicon too, now you have your rebar. The two work together synergistically. So it's going to improve the effect. The silicon alone has effect. It has the effect of reducing some of the fungal diseases. Like that's why they use it on cucumbers, because they're so susceptible to powdery mildew and other fungi. Fusarium, that's really important to help prevent and control fusarium wilt. But if you can get calcium uptake with it, now you've got a perfect combination. The higher pectin, which protects the plant against powdery mildew. Oh, by the way, um, if the plant takes up the calcium, if there's more calcium than it needs to strengthen the cell walls, the plant will pump it into the vacuole inside the cell. And if the plant is under attack, say from powdery mildew or any other fungi, the plant recognizes the chitin in the cell wall of the fungus. So the plant will send a signal molecule from the surface of the leaf to the vacuole, open up calcium ion channels. Inside the cell, thousands or millions of calcium ions flow into the cytoplasm of the cell, starts an oxidative burst, which is the plant's first line of defense against the fungi or the attack. So you have both sides. You have that calcium as a physical barrier. You have the excess calcium as a backup if the plant's under attack, and you have the silicon as a physical barrier. And after the attack, silicon is mobilized to the point of infection, so to help prevent the spread. So I think it's obviously there's a very major synergistic effect between amino acids and silica as far as plant physiology goes.
Boy, the information we can spit out doing these things, it's so valuable. I mean, just the way you explain it, and it's such a unique, organism plants are. I mean, we look at it, oh, that's just plants. They need this, they need that. But to really break it down like that, the way you did, it's it's phenomenal how well these plants would do sometimes if we just leave them alone. We try to get in so much control of it and overdo it and get things out of balance, and it's almost like the plants struggle just to keep doing what they want to do, and we change their you know some of their attributes to put up with the things we think we're doing are correct when it's actually hurting. So boy, that was a very good explanation of how that works. Incredible. I mean, I've never heard it broken down like that. Great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's about balance. And remember too, plants adapt. They're very adapt. They have to. They can't run away. You can't say, well, I'm going to go find some place that has different nutrients. Now they'll spread to that area, and when they find the perfect environment, they're they're fruitful and they multiply and try to take over the area, obviously. So there is some of that, but plants will adapt to different conditions. And if we're getting in the way and we're always making changes over and over and over, adding too much of this or not enough of that, or imbalance, the plant doesn't have time to adapt. It's almost better to have it not perfect and let the plant figure out what it needs. Now, if we're going to go into intensive production, we can't just, well, let's just see what happens. We'd have to kind of give them a boost in the right direction for production. But I think that one of the biggest mistakes that growers make, especially hydroponics, is making too many changes and doing it too quickly. Small changes, little by little, and so you get a chance to actually see the effect on the plant.
Good point. Good point. I thought of another thing to bring up about the our soluble silica powder is
Mm.
where there's not a salt attached to it. It really doesn't affect ppms. And for those growers that add it according to our label recommendations, they really won't see any ppm value from that. And I forgot to mention that earlier, and it's important because a lot of our customers, they think everything they add should have an effect on their ppm meter. And as a matter of fact, a lot of organic amendments and things like that have very little effect on ppm or no effect at all. So silica is one of those. Our silica powder is one of those. It really won't alter pH, and it really doesn't alter the ppms. And I just wanted to throw that back in there.
That's a good point, but it does have a lot of cation exchange potential,
Right.
so they can hold and release other nutrients from the surfaces.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's only the mineral ions that affect the PA or the EC, the electrical conductivity, and these particles are neutral, so they won't have an effect on it.
Yeah, great point. Yep, great point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
silicon dioxide is what it is.
yeah, silicon dioxide. Yeah, our silica powder. That is correct. Well, how are the classes going?
Well, I have a new set going on right now. I'm on week 3 tonight. It's going to be on precision fertilizer management and a strategy of growing I call spoon feeding, where we're giving the plant exactly what it needs when it needs it. So we're going to be exploring the needs of the plant for different nutrients at different times in their growth cycle, and ways to make very small changes to have a maximum effect on quality or yield. So that's tonight. The actual series I'm on, it's a very small class this round. I need to get more enrollment for the next, but I'm getting inquiries. So people are asking about future classes. So enrollment's low. It doesn't bother me though. Um, the low enrollment means I have more time to spend with questions and answers. I can take some emails between classes too. If I have a big class with 50 people in it, then it's really hard just to keep up. But I only have about 5 students right now in this series I'm doing. And I'd like to see a minimum of 10 to 12. That's the ideal size class. But maybe I'll do it next round.
Yeah. Well, we highly recommend your classes. We've been letting our customers aware, our subscribers to kelp4less.com. We've been letting them, making them aware of your classes, current and upcoming. So we would like to see that too. Just very valuable information. And boy, the fact that you're taking the time to do this, it's so affordable. You look at the things you can buy just for whatever you're doing and compare it to the price you charge for your courses. There's so much value there. It's not very expensive. It comes highly recommended, and boy, a lot of the things that you teach and they can learn will really change them long term in how they look at growing things. And so yeah, it's a very valuable course, and we highly recommend it. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate your support as always.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it is great to see you back. Great to have a conversation again like this. And yeah, hopefully we get some ideas of future hydroponic Hall of Fame inductees.
Mm.
That, that sounds like it might be kind of fun. We'll just get the word out there and see what happens with that.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, you think we should wrap up for today?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. I got a lot of business stuff and take care of quite a few customers, so I got a pretty big day ahead of me, and I better get on that as well. So, um, yeah, once again, glad you're back in chair there on the camera, and look forward to
Mhm.
seeing you again next week.
Okay. See you next week, Brandon.
All right, thanks, Harley.
Bye.
See ya.